Okay, let's talk more about Jake Barber, the new UFO whistleblower. So get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please like and subscribe, and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Hopefully, many of you will have checked out the full documentary or interview with Jake Barber on News Nation the other day. I've seen the full interview now, and there's definitely some things that I'm glad that I was able to pick up on in the full viewing. The first time around, I wasn't able to catch it live because I had my UFO group, formerly in my MUFON group, when we left MUFON, but we meet in a different city, and I had to travel to it and come back. So I missed most of the live viewing of it. I caught the last 15 minutes or so when they were talking about the Skywatcher program and the CE5, and Gary Nolan showed up, and that was really interesting. But yeah, one of the things that I came across in the full viewing of it was the transmedium objects, and that was really cool.
Because things would come from the ground.
Yeah, things would come out of the ground. They come out of the ridge. They would come, from solid ground into the air. I thought that was super fascinating. That's what they were finding at Skinwalker Ranch. They even had video of these things coming out of the mesa. My very first UFO sighting was of a transmedium object, of a luminous white object going at very fast into the ground. So yeah, really cool to see him talking more about this. Others aren't as excited about Jake's information. There has been kind of a big negative blowback against the video. So let's go over some of the debunkers and their concerns. And we will also go over some of the pro category as well. One of the big concerns is over the video of the UFO crash retrieval showing the egg or an egg being retrieved. Apparently there's multiple eggs. There's a lot of eggs out there. And I guess there are. I mean, Lonnie Zamora was seeing this stuff back in the 60s. So yeah, apparently eggs are a thing, and they were retrieving more than one of these things. But this video apparently is not taken by Jake Barber. This was likely taken by somebody else. We don't know who. That information was not revealed in the special, unfortunately. They cut a few seconds of that portion of it that detailed that. But that information has since come out that whoever took that video, it wasn't Jake Barber. But it was taken. Is it credible? A lot of people think this was made out of aerogel, that it's showing some sort of light object, as in not a heavy object. But there has been a new analysis done by ProPixel Video Analysis and Research, and he does a great job of analyzing, sometimes debunking, sometimes rebunking anomalous videos. So as far as the weight of this object and how it moves, let's give a listen to what he has to say.
That the helicopter's moving, I won't say all over the place, but the helicopter is moving around. And it is having essentially zero effect on the inertia on the egg. So this thing is heavy. And the second piece of it is when it touches the ground, it maintains all of the momentum, because you can see the helicopter is going from left to right. The egg is going from left to right. And when it touches the ground, it continues to move to the right with all of the momentum that the helicopter had put into it when it set down.
Yeah, he also addresses the concern about the wind. Some people weren't impressed by the video because they felt the rotors should have created more wind or disturbance in the air. But he's able to show that that's not necessarily the case. And he ultimately comes away seeming to believe that this is authentic footage of a heavy egg-shaped object being transported by a helicopter. So yeah, I'm inclined to believe that he's right, and that we are looking at some strange object being carried by a helicopter. But this is not necessarily, and probably was not taken by Jake Barber, but is showing a separate retrieval of an egg-shaped UFO, if that's what it is. Others are very concerned about the woo aspect of Jake Barber's information, having a contact experience with a female entity of some sort of other dimensional being he described as more of like a goddess sort of being, but let's just call her a other dimensional being or just an entity, female entity, possibly similar to the lady in Chris Bledsoe's story, and he actually chimes in on the story too, and we'll get to his comments in a minute. But as far as the woo goes, does that confirm that CE5 is a thing with the CE5 portion of the proceedings? Well, yeah, CE5 is a thing. It is, as Mo Ebe says, I have done it many times. Don't take it from me. Do it on your own and see. And yeah, so do it yourself with a group or alone. Don't go into it with the intention of debunking. Go into it with love and light and a sincere desire for contact. And you may have to do it multiple times for it to work, but I think that you will probably see that it works. CE5 is a thing. Telepathic communication is a thing. People do get contacted by beings. That is a thing. A lot of people want to think of UFOs as a strictly nuts and bolts phenomenon. But as I take great pains to show on the channel, that's not the case at all. The woo is baked into UFOs. UFOs are a subset of what I call the greater phenomenon, but it's not even a distinct subset because it's baked into all the other stuff. In Las Vegas, they get aliens in their backyard one moment, they have a haunted house the next. You're retrieving a UFO one moment, you're in touch with a female entity of some sort the next. It's just how this stuff goes, guys. And, in order to fully understand UFOs, or at least to more fully understand UFOs, because I don't know if we can ever completely understand them, but in order to more fully understand them, you have to be willing to embrace concepts that you may not be comfortable with. I know I wasn't at first. I came into it from I was an atheist. I looked at it from a strictly nuts and bolts point of view, but I was open-minded, and when the research led me to the the paranormal and the metaphysical. At first, I was very skeptical of it. I didn't believe in any of that silly nonsense, but I did the research. And ultimately, I realized that in order to fully believe in this stuff, I would have to experience it myself. So I co-founded a ghost hunting team, did some ghost hunting, had some experiences, ultimately went on to learn Reiki and other things, and began to have my own metaphysical and also UFO experiences. And so now I'm an experiencer. My research led me to becoming an experiencer from the point of view of an extreme skeptic in all of this. But yeah, that's just where this stuff goes, And so I encourage y'all that are more skeptical minded to be open to it, because yeah, that's where it goes. But it's not all pie in the sky and dancing with unicorns. Unfortunately, Jake Barber suffered severe health effects from transporting what he describes as a mystery box, one of multiple such items that he transported. We don't know what was in the box. They weren't prepared for it to be radioactive. They were completely prepared to deal with radioactive materials. He says they, had procedures in place. They put on their suits and everything, and that was totally not something they were unprepared to deal with. But something must have turned on within this mystery box to produce radiation or something. That were giving he and his team some severe reactions, skin sloughing off, etc., seeming to be radioactive poisoning. We don't know for sure. Gary Nolan himself came in and studied the case and seemed to think it was legit. Very alarming and, concerning that the powers that be, getting these loyal, patriotic individuals to transport this material don't take better care of them, or maybe if they let them know what the hell they were transporting, it might give them a heads up on how to deal with it. But obviously, they didn't know what it was or that it could produce these negative effects, because, like I say, they do have procedures in place to deal with the radiation if it is indeed radioactive. So this was a surprise to Jake and his people, and probably the people that were giving them their orders in the first place. But still not entirely satisfied by that explanation. They didn't want Jake and the others to know what it was, and I have to wonder if that could have helped. Gary Nolan also had this to say on a panel that included Hal Puthoff, Jim Segala, Leslie Kean, great lineup. Gary is saying that Jake is able to come forward now because of the efforts of, Lou Elizondo and David Grush. Let's hear what he has to say.
What you're seeing is a form of acclimatization where people who previously might not have felt comfortable coming forward are now saying, okay, well, hey, they didn't get locked up. They've shown us how to be careful about how we talk about this. I feel comfortable coming forward as well. And so, what I think is unique about Jake and the team that he's participated in assembling behind Skywatcher is that it's not just him who claims to have been involved with retrievals, crash retrievals or otherwise, but other members of the team.
Yeah, that's right. It's not just Jake saying this, and Jake has been vetted by Ross Coulthart. Lou Elizondo had some involvement in all of this, apparently. Stephen Greer had also some involvement in this. And Gary Nolan had some involvement in this, taking Jake seriously and the others. We've got Ross, Gary, Greer, and Lou all in the mix on this. Some of them have been working on this case for years. It's an all-star lineup of ufology, seeming to add, to me, credence to Jake's claims and the claims of the others. I think we're looking at the real deal here, guys, and the skeptics and debunkers on this that want the UFO to come out and give them a foot rub and are disappointed that it doesn't. You may be throwing the baby out with the bathwater on this. I think that we need to look at it as objectively as we can and as respectfully as we can and say that, yeah, all these guys are involved in this. They are vetting to some extent Jake's claims, and he seems to be the real deal and his experiences are real. And we can respectfully move on to analyzing his information and going from there. Speaking of some of the others, this is Fred Baker, one of Jake's compatriots, who says disclosure is the release of new or secret information. It's not about convincing anyone. Information will be provided, and it's up to the people to decide what to do with it. There are people who will never be convinced. No worries. It's going to have balance. More to come. Okay, well, I can't wait to see what that more is. He goes on to say, even with that evidence, with better evidence, it still wouldn't be enough. It will require everyone experiencing it for themselves to be convinced. Daunting task. But our motivation remains. Okay, I said I was going to talk about Chris Bledsoe's comments, so let's talk about it. He says, in 2007, I reported to MUFON a 45-foot glowing egg that took me 4 hours. For 4 hours. The government came immediately. The lady came in 2012, and the rest is history. This may explain why I have had such a connection to government. UFO of God, his book, goes deeper into what Jake is saying. As Jake Barber approached the egg-shaped craft, he felt it was a very feminine energy. It felt like the spirit of God. Somebody asked, wasn't the egg a separate psionic craft that the eight gong feminine energy? And that commenter is correct. It wasn't the egg that triggered the telepathic or spiritual connection that Jake had. It was more of a saucer-shaped craft that was segmented into 8 segments that he called the eight gong. Chris says, never mind. It's all about her. It's all about the feminine energy. And, you have to wonder if this was indeed the lady. I mean, I'm sure there's multiple feminine entities out there, so I don't want to lump them all together. But they don't all look alike. So, but you have to wonder. Chris goes on to say, at the third gunshot, and this is a quote from his book, at the third gunshot, the egg shape began to rotate, pivoting what appeared to be its nose directly at our truck. It seemed to be aiming at us. Soundlessly, it approached us, gathering speed. As it got closer, it became no less decipherable. There were no gaps or consistent variations to the pattern of its general brilliance. Gary Nolan replies to this comment, so let's check out what Pippa Malmgren had to say. Rather than challenging Jake's credentials or even his story, given the preponderance of equally highly placed witnesses with very high security clearances who say the same, we need to ask, 1, why is the government moving these strange objects around? 2, what are these objects? 3, why are government personnel being asked to move them to do tasks with them that put their health at risk? 4, who is trying to kill or injure the valuable, experienced, highly trained, highly patriotic U.S. government operatives who are involved with them? Yeah, because that was another thing that came out in the full interview. Jake saying that once he started working for a private corporation, likely Lockheed or Boeing or one of those people, that at a certain point he felt his life was at risk and that his employer was trying to kill him. 5, who is behind the government's disinfo discrediting campaign on this subject? 6, why are we not bringing our best science to this phenomenon? And he goes on, or Pippa goes on, she goes on, but Gary chimes in saying, exactly, the particulars are essential to debate. However, the motivations and players are what must be understood. As in biology experiments, you observe the phenotype, but behind the scenes are the genes, the architects and designers. In the end, the RNA and proteins, the messengers, actors, and tools. Understanding those is what is most important. It's how you decide where to push for change. But did Jake and Ross push the woo angle too far? Joey is not my name, who has thoroughly explored the Michael Herrera story that seems to have some connections with the Jake Barber story, talking about psionics and luring UFOs in, etc. Joey says, if this is all true, the special should have been 100% nuts and bolts, with solid evidence proving a crash retrieval of an NHI craft. Evidence that could be analyzed by itself without needing context or trust, and come to a reasonable conclusion as proof of NHI. Let that go viral for a few days, earn trust and credibility, then introduce the woo in a follow-up after seizing the attention of the world. Missed opportunity. And, he's got a point. I think that if they had focused on the nuts and bolts and, cemented Jake's experiences as real in the minds of the public, that could only relate to a nuts and bolts phenomenon, and then gradually introduce the woo later, it may have had more impact, unfortunately. But as I point out in a reply, the woo is inextricably linked to UFOs. And if we're going to understand UFOs, we have to look at the broader picture. But, there is something to be said for getting people on board first. But others are very galvanized by this, and they see that egg-shaped video and they say, hey, I saw an egg. Wes Decker says he saw one in Austin, my hometown. I don't live there now, but I have lived there most of my life. He says, I took pictures of an unidentified object in Austin, Texas in 2005. It was visible long enough for me to capture multiple images. The egg pics from Jake reminded me of this. I have the raw images with EXIF for anyone interested. And there you go, he shows this egg. Okay, definitely very egg-like. So all in all, I really appreciated the interview and the special. I thought it was great. There was some amazing information in it, some alarming, scary information in it, some fascinating, perplexing information in it. In particular, I really want more answers about Skywatcher and CE5 and their psionics or psychically gifted people, whoever is leading the way on their CE5 efforts. Because they describe actually taking control of the craft. And I had never heard that before. There's plenty of stories out there about experiencers, contactees who, after they've been abducted or contacted enough times, eventually they will be asked to fly the UFO once they're on the UFO. But to do it from CE5, to be able to hijack or something a UFO and pilot it yourself from the ground, that seems weird to me. It was my impression, they were using CE5 and the psychically gifted people, psionics, whatever you want to call them, to, lure the UFOs in, to make contact with the beings on board and lure them in. But according to the special, they're actually taking control of the craft. So I have a lot of questions about that. I would like, more information about that, if that is indeed what was going on. Maybe they misstated it. I'd love more information. If you guys know more about it, let me know. If you've seen more cases like that or more information on that, let me know in the comments below. And I'll definitely be paying attention to what Skywatcher, what Jake and his team are doing now. They have this private company where they are investigating, for example, the mystery drones, and apparently also luring UFOs in, even sparking potentially some sort of dogfight situation where one UFO was trying to prevent this from happening. We'll see where that research goes. And if they can lure a UFO in so that it lands on camera, which I guess is what they were trying to do, that would be kind of a big deal. Will that actually happen? Or will other UFOs continually prevent that from happening, if indeed that's what took place that day? I don't know, but I'll definitely be keeping my eye on Skywatcher. That seems pretty cool. I thought the interview was really cool, and there was some great stuff in there. Again, I think that if David Grush can start on Ross Coulthart and wind up before Congress at a congressional hearing, then so can Jake Barber with his pedigree, with all the vetting that's been done on him. He's already been to Congress. He's already talked to people. He's already not only talked to Congress, but Arrow, and they have lost his information. I mean, you can't get more credible than having your information lost by Arrow. I can't wait to see where the story goes. I hope this is not the end of the story. I hope that the backlash against Jake and his information doesn't prevent him from continuing to go forward with this, to give us more information, more details, to galvanize Congress and the public for more information and more transparency, and ultimately oversight of these black programs, because that's what we really need. Loved it. Thank you, Ross. Thank you, Jake. But hey, I understand not everybody was a huge fan of the interview. So, let me know your honest thoughts about it all in the comments below. Thumbs up, thumbs down for the interview, but definitely thumbs up for this video. If you've enjoyed this video, thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified of future videos, buy a t-shirt, become a channel member. There's plenty of other videos on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.